good enough. You too black, or you ain't black enough. Your hair too kinky, or your hair too straight. You ain't got enough curves, you got too much curve. People will always strive to tell you what you can't do. Now, don't get me wrong, you got two types of folk in this world who try to present fear to you. You got folk who generally have your best interests at heart. And then you got them folk, I have to put them in the category of just them haters. Them jealous folk. The folk with the crab mentality. Y'all know about crabs, don't you? Y'all know about the fact that they don't put lids on the crab barrels because anytime one crab trying to get up and grab out, one of them from the bottom will grab him that's at the top and strive to pull him down. And a lot of folk in the world just like that. Soon as you're striving to make it out of your bad time, when you're striving to make it out of your bad circumstances, when you're striving to make it out of your bad situation, they will strive to reach up and grab hold to you and pull you right back down in the mess. Some people don't mind you being successful as long as you're not as successful as they are. Amen. Some folk don't mind you getting a new house just as long as you stay in the projects where they at. They don't mind you getting a new suit of clothes as long as you at the same Goodwill that they go to. But as soon as you move from Goodwill to Kmart to Walmart, they got to start talking about you. As soon as you move from the 2-bedroom to the 3-bedroom, I don't know who she thinks she is. But you got to understand, my brothers and sisters, just like the song said, what God has for me, it is for me. And you need to ask some people sometimes, the ones that's hating on you, the ones that's trying to keep you down, why is it that you're trying to block a blessing that you can't handle? Because the blessing I got for me, you can't handle my blessing, because my blessing for me. Just like I heard a preacher talking this morning, and he was saying that the pitcher of water is never jealous of the cup of water, and the cup of water is never jealous of the refrigerator full of water, and the refrigerator full of water is never jealous of the pond that's full of water, and the pond that's full of water is never jealous of the lake that's full of water, and the lake that's full of water is never jealous of the ocean that's full of water, because the cup realizes about the refrigerator, and it realizes about the pitcher, and it realizes about the lake, and it realizes about the ocean, that you can't handle what God has given me. You can't handle my blessing because God has designed it for me. He has made it for me. And my attitude, if it's mine, God give it to me, and I'm glad about it. Just like you can't allow self-fear to block your progress, you cannot allow the fear of others to keep you from what God has for you. You cannot allow the jealousies of those who don't realize the same God that blessed you with what you have is the same God that'll bless them with what they have. All they got to do is do the same thing you're doing, and that's trusting God. But the problem is, a lot of times folk want to get blessings from God without having a relationship with God. They want to come and they want to talk to God, and they want to ask God for so many things, and yet They won't come visit God. They won't talk to God. They won't pray to God. They won't trust God. They won't tithe to God. They won't put their all into God. Hello, somebody. It's just like a man who wants $1 million and yet don't want to have a relationship with the benefactor of the $1 million. The Bible sits and tells us in the Gospel of John that the Lord is establishing not religion but relationship. For did not he say unto everyone that receiveth him gives he them the power to become children of the Most High God? Does not Paul teach us in Galatians how we can cry out, Abba, Father? And when Jesus teaches the prayer, does not he teach it by opening and saying, Our Father which art in heaven? Unless we are willing to establish a relationship with God, how can we expect the blessings from God? And yet there will always be those around you who will want to try to keep you from what God has for you. They will always look at you and tell you what you can't do. Or better still, what you ought not do. You ain't got no business getting up on Sunday morning and going down there to that church. You ain't got no business trusting God with 10% of your tithes. You could take that 10% and go down to the casino and double it. I know I wasn't going to get too many amens on that. Child, you ain't got to trust God enough to be committed to your spouse, because you know while they going to work, you can creep and do all of this other kind of stuff, and they'll never know. And yet, you got to realize that you can build skyscrapers, grand and tall. You can build great cathedrals, large or small. You can conquer all the failures of the past, but only what you do for Christ will last. We're committed in our lives, not because we're trying to prove a point, but because we're committed to Christ. We bring our tithes and our offerings to the storehouse, not because we're trying to have our names at the top of a list, but because we're committed to Christ. We come Sunday after Sunday and throw our hands up in an excited praise, not to see how high one can jump or how straight one can land, but because we are committed to Christ. And until it becomes a commitment to Him, then all you're doing is in vain. David had to deal, my brothers and my sisters, with fear that was brought on by his own self. David had to deal with fear that was brought on by those in the camp. But lastly, my brothers and my sisters, David had to deal with the fear that was brought on by his enemy. Goliath's voice was a trembling voice. Goliath spoke of countless battles that he had already been through. His battlefield resume showed how many men he had conquered. And he even put servitude on the table for himself and for the men of the Philistines. Goliath had much a sense of his own indignation, and he had much courage in his own words. When David looked around, he recognized and he realized the challenge that was before him. When he came to Saul and he told Saul that he was ready to tackle the challenge, Saul said, "Well, David, I tell you what you do. Why don't you take my armor and my sword. But I come to tell you, my brother